How many men do you go to therapy?
That's
They
where I was
don't.
gonna go with it next. Because I was gonna say, what's the issue or concern about going to like a mental health professional? Because this is a total stranger, so it's not someone that like your family or friends that could, potentially see you again and bring it up in your face, or look at you different. Like why aren't they open to even that?
Because a lot of people view mental health as you being crazy, which is
Mm,
not the case. And like I said, that's
exactly.
a stigma and a stereotype that definitely needs to be changed. Like there are a lot of people, like some of the most successful and most powerful people, they go to therapists
Exactly.
because of the amount of responsibility that's on their plate and on their
Of
shoulders.
course.
It keeps them from cracking. So if
Exactly.
somebody that has all of this responsibility and all of this power and all of this pressure, if they can go to a therapist and talk to somebody, what makes you think that you can't?
To the viewers who are watching now, if you wanted to kind of leave any tips for men, because Tori, I see that you're somebody who's so easy to talk to, so easy to come on and state your views about things. And I know it's challenging, I know, doing this show to have guys come on and speak. It's not common that you find a guy who can come on and express himself in such a fluent manner, and is actually just upfront and say how he feels, and tactful as well. So my question to you is, what is it, what skills did you develop, or how did you become like this? Because I really want to encourage men to be more open, because as you know, in terms of mental health or just talking about what's going on with them, like, it's not common for men to do this kind of thing. So my question to you is, do you have any tips, like how did you become this person that can just speak your mind openly and not have those kind of fears to hold you back?
Um, I did a lot of reading. I observe a lot. I listen to a lot. I've learned that the self worth and all of the people that will preach or talk about self esteem and things of that nature, even though mostly it's directed towards women, I feel like it's something that can be directed towards men as well. And like nobody talks about, like, okay, they always talk about women valuing themselves and building themselves up and things of that nature, but nobody talks about men doing so. Like we've now coming to a season where it's okay for men to be transparent, whereas before that was something that was so taboo, and that was something that we were always taught not to show emotion. Like you might show emotion if like a family member dies, but that's pretty much going to be the beginning and the end of it. Like if somebody breaks your heart, then you just deal with it. You don't even talk about it. But like I said, nowadays, because of the fact that holding stuff like that in leads to, mental health issues, physical issues. It leads to generational curses and things of that
Mm,
nature, that you have kids and grandchildren trying to figure out, well, why do we have to deal with this? Because it was something that was never dealt with in the past.
mm,
Like I believe that if you have kids and grandchildren, that you're supposed to set them up for their life to be in a better place than yours was. And I don't want two, three, four generations before me. I don't want the weight of those unhealed issues to be placed upon the shoulders of my kids and grandkids,
ooh,
on top of everything else that they have to deal with in life.
ooh, that's deep. Because I feel like so many men are silenced, like they're dying inside, and
Yeah.
they aren't, and it even shortens their life. You know what I mean? Like it has some serious ramifications, and we're never going to talk about suicide and everything else.
Right.
So you said that essentially you kind of researched, you fed your mind about, self-esteem and empowering yourself and built yourself up in that kind of way.
And I
Um,
changed my circle.
oh, tell me.
So, like my closest friends, I can have the most transparent conversations with,
Mm,
and we hold each other accountable. Like they'll check me on something, and I'll check them on something. And I know it's because deep down, they just want to see a better version of me. Like they don't want me to be taken advantage of or used, abused, things of that nature. And I want the same for them. I want them to be happy. I want them to be the best version of themselves or be exactly what God intended them to be. Like that's the common denominator that we all have, is that that's what we're striving for, to be the best version that God wants us to be, and to be able to be a blessing to others at the same time, whether it's something that we say, whether it's something that we do, things of that nature. So I have maybe 3 or 4 people in my circle that I know I can lean on, and we're real big on iron sharpens iron,
Yes.
because we've had enough iron trying to sharpen wood, and and
Preach.
all that does is a disaster. So yeah, like case in point, I was talking to a friend of mine earlier today who was going through something, and he made a comment where at the end of his relationship, he stated, "Well, I just want closure." And I told him, I said, "You don't have to have closure. Having closure, having to have closure is a myth, because all closure does is confirm the very thing that you knew all along anyway. So what is the closure? Allowing you to be like, oh, well, I got the person to admit that they were wrong, or I got the person to admit, oh, I'm sorry I did this, or I'm sorry I did that. That doesn't change the relationship. That doesn't change the
Exactly.
fact that what they did to you hurt you the way that it did. Like, so
Mhm.
you have to get to a place where you can walk away without having closure, as opposed to dragging something on,
Mm,
looking for closure when
mm,
you already know what the end result is going to be anyway.
mm. You know, we going off on a side on this, but it's so true. I want to say that's true. And I think a lot of times we don't want to admit it, but it's our pride. It's like we hurt. That's why. And we have to
Yeah,
come humble ourselves and say, hey, I'm not everyone's cup of tea. You know what I
right.
mean? Hey, you know what I mean? Like it's a humbling kind of thing, but a lot of times it's our pride. And we have
And
to
you
let
have
that
to be
go.
okay with that.
Yes.
You have
Yes.
to be okay with that.
Hmm,
You
man.
have to. Like and going back to accountability, I heard a pastor say um, today on a sermon I was listening to. She said, "Show me an individual who does not have accountability, and I will show you someone whose life is headed for destruction." And I
So
believe
true.
that,
So
because
true.
if you don't have like to me, accountability is similar to boundaries. If
Mm-hmm,
you don't
mm-hmm,
have any boundaries, then you're just left running wild.
mm-hmm.
And the way you see things, that's what you think is law, no matter how right or wrong it might be.
Mhm.
And like I said, I don't need anybody that's gonna co-sign for my wrong.
Mm.
I do enough of that by myself. So I don't need anybody else to co-sign on my wrong. I don't I that's an auxiliary. I don't need any volunteers or members or anything of that nature. So yeah, so like I said, I take my circle, um, I definitely take them to heart, and I wouldn't be where I am presently if it wasn't for them. Especially considering the last situation I was in, they basically were the ones that got me out of it.
Mm. So do you think that you started attracting these kinds of people when you became that kind of person? Because someone watching might say, "Hey, how do I find these people? How do I do that?" But do you think that there's something to speak on, if you start doing the research, like you said, feeding your mind and changing your mind, that those kinds of people will come into your life and you'll attract those?
Well, the funny thing is, all of these people, like we've been friends for over like 10 years. So
Mm.
we kind of all like evolved kind of like at the same time.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of like silently seeing, okay, I see this person is changing. Let me see what they're doing. But then
Mm,
that person is also watching you. And then it's kind of like a cycle to where
mhm.
you all are watching each other and seeing the growth and the 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 product of the growth and the changes that that person has made. And you're like, okay, well, hey, I kind of want that too. What are they doing differently? And like
Mhm.
that conversation just keeps going over and over and over again. And so like we're all in better places than we were even 2-3 years ago.
Mm. And how about men feeling like they can confide in their woman as well? Like, do men, okay, let's say in terms of you have your guy friends, how do you feel about men like opening up, like when they're feeling broken, if they want to cry about something, if they're feeling like, they're feeling weak in their eyes, do men feel like they can open up, or do they look for that in a woman, like a woman that I can be vulnerable with in that way?
Um, is it looked for? Yes. But the fear is being vulnerable and then it being brought back up later.
Oof.
Whereas the vulnerability that women show, we never have the thought process of, okay, if we're in an argument or a heated discussion, let me bring back up something that you told me in confidence.
Mm.
Because women are submissive to a degree, to whereas men are prideful. So women will take something that a man has said in confidence and will bring it back up to hurt his pride, because she knows she can't hurt him physically, but she
Oof.
can hurt his pride and his ego.
So when women are kind of weaponizing that information against the guy. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Ooh, that's dangerous woman there. Okay. So now let's talk about the outlets. Oh, go ahead.
Like, take, for example, I know you know the story of Samson and Delilah.
Oh, yes.
And Delilah took what Samson told her in confidence to break him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that was her plan all along. And he got comfortable, but he still eventually told her the very thing that nobody else knew,
Mm-hmm.
that would be his demise.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the one thing, like when we tell somebody something that we may not have told anybody else, haven't told your parents, your grandparents, your pastor, your therapist, we don't ever expect for it to come back up. We expect to be able to say it. It's discussed, it's put to rest, and then we go on. Like, don't get mad at me and then come back and throw up something that, like I said, I told you in confidence. Because even if I get past it, the likelihood of me trusting you with information that valuable again is out the window.
Yeah.
I will go tell a complete stranger before I'll tell you again. Because you've already proven you can't be trusted with the information I gave you.
Mm.
But yet you want me to hold your secrets dear and close to my heart, but I can't expect you to do the same. So that happens also.
And what about the fear of them thinking, okay, you're less than a man, or thinking, like changing the way they view you? Is that a concern for men too?
It might be,
Mm-hmm.
for some,
Yeah.
based off the way that they were raised.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you take men that they never saw let's say they never saw their dad cry, or their grandfather, or their uncle. Like, if they had men in their life that they never saw show emotion, then that's going to be a tough thing for them, because they're going to be like, well, what if my grandfather saw me like this? What would they say? Now, what they say is not necessarily law. It's just how they were taught. And that's all that they're projecting, is they're projecting the way that they were taught, which is the same thing that was taught from generation to generation. Men don't do this, men don't do that, things of that nature. But now we live in a totally different world, where you have people that, because they can't feel like they can express themselves, they're writing suicide notes and blowing their brains out because they can't express themselves to anybody.
Yes.
How many men do you go to therapy?
That's where I was gonna go with it next, because I was gonna say, what's the issue or concern about going to like a mental health professional? Because this is a total stranger, so it's not someone that, like, your family or friends that could potentially see you again and bring it up in your face, or look at you different. Like, why aren't they open to even that?
Because a lot of people view mental health as you being crazy, which is
Mm,
not the case. And like I said, that's
exactly.
a stigma and a stereotype that definitely needs to be changed. Like there are a lot of people, like some of the most successful and most powerful people, they go to therapists
Exactly.
because of the amount of responsibility that's on their plate and on their
Of
shoulders.
course.
It keeps them from cracking. So if
Exactly.
somebody that has all of this responsibility and all of this power and all of this pressure, if they can go to a therapist and talk to somebody, what makes you think that you can't?
Exactly. And even if it's someone, like we said, within the church, perhaps like a pastor or someone, in the church that can help, find someone, a life coach, some
Right.
outside source, someone that can help. Like you said, I think that stigma is going away. I think hopefully people are seeing that it's okay. It doesn't mean you're crazy. It doesn't mean anything is wrong with you. At any point in time, you can be going through something and you will go through
Yeah.
something. It's inevitable, right? We had a
Uh-huh.
segment where we spoke about dating someone with mental illness, and the professional that came on the show said that at any point in time you could have this, right? So just because at this moment in time you are experiencing signs of depression, it could just be this moment in time. It doesn't mean that that's always going to be the case. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So these symptoms and things could just be because of what you're going on right now. It does not have to show the trajectory of your life. It does not have to label you forever. It could just be what you're going through right now. And everyone has been there, whether they've gone to a mental health professional or not. So I'm really hoping with this segment and having more discussions like this and having awesome men like you, Torey, on the show, telling men that it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with, saying how you feel and opening up. So I think you gave really good tips, Torey, to men who are, thinking of suffering or having, internal battles or just feeling overwhelmed or need someone to talk to. You gave really good advice, some really good tips. So before we sign out kind of this real talk session, Torey, did you have any kind of final words for single men or single women watching? Want to share any of your sentiments on the dating field or any advice to anyone? You can do so now.
I guess the only sentiments I have is to make sure that when you're dating or getting to know somebody, you always know what your value is and don't diminish it or try to cover it up or make less of it just to say that you're having somebody to talk to or somebody to date. I think a lot of people do that. And they'll be like, well, do I think too highly of myself?
Mm,
And my answer would always be no. And if you're a believer or a Christian or what have you, to ask such a question, do I think too highly of myself? Then imagine what God thinks of you,
uh-huh.
because he thinks so highly of you. He could have made you anything. Could have made you a bug, a flower, a bird, but he decided to make you in his own likeness and his own image. So you are a reflection of him. So
Mm,
if he thinks that highly of you, then don't allow anybody to come into your life to cause you to think any less highly of yourself than he does.
ooh, yes. And if you find that someone is doing that and making you feel that way, making you question yourself, that's not the person for you. That's run. I'm gonna say run.
Right.
Run fast, because that will kill you and you'll end up in some mess for potentially years trying to find out who you are when you look in the mirror. So
Right.
that is nothing to play with. Oh my goodness. Thank you, Torey, so much for being on the show again. I truly appreciate
No
you.
problem. No
And
problem.
tell everybody where they can find you again if they didn't watch our previous episodes.
The usual on Instagram, Mr. CEO status 913. I've been leaving that part off. And on TikTok with Mr. CEO status as well. That's how I can be found on both of those platforms.
Okay, Torey, thank you again, and blessings on everything. And thank you all for watching this Real Talk session on my comfy couch. Toodles.